guys, welcome back to the homestead. So it's soup season, which is always kind of exciting. So what I'm actually doing is I made a triple batch of my chicken stew, and I want to put this into pint jars so that way if I need quick and easy dinners, quick and easy lunches, something to pack for everybody to take where they can keep where they go along the way, I know what they're eating is healthy and good for them. So I've already gone out and prepped my soup. Like I said, I'll put the recipe below for you guys. I did a double batch because what I'm trying to do is get 19 pints out of this because my canner will hold 19 pints. So what I'm going to do is I have hot soup. I have hot jars, which I'm using, again, my steamer to kind of keep my jars warm so that way I don't have to work super fast. And I've already got my water boiling in my canner over here. So remember, if you're doing hot items, you need hot jars to hot water. I'm actually going to turn that back a little bit. That way we don't boil all our water out while we're waiting. So what I'm going to start to do now is move everything in. So I'm going to change the camera angle for you guys so you'll be able to see better what I'm doing. And let's start to get this canned up. Okay, I think that's a pretty good angle so you can kind of see the canner, not so much of me, which is okay. So you've got the canner here and then my jars here, and the soup is off to the right, which you don't really need to see the big pot of soup. Kind of get the concept. The chicken stew, it's one of our easy go-to meals around here in the winter time. So all I'm going to do, and what I try to do for my first couple scoops, like my first scoop in, I'll drain the juice off. That way I know I'm getting a good amount of veggies and stuff in there. You're going to want to leave about an inch headspace on these. Don't leave enough space, they could siphon, and you could compromise your seal. I always try to make sure as I'm doing this, I do at least get some chicken in there. People think they're robbed if they don't get chicken in their soup. My dad used to tell this story. He was second oldest of 5 boys, and he was convinced for the longest time, because his mother would feed the younger ones first, that chicken noodle soup didn't have noodles. It was just chicken and broth. Because by the time it got to him, there was no broth left. I mean, there was no noodles left. All his younger brothers gobbled them up. Just thought that was kind of funny. I use the colorful carrots, the rainbow organic carrots. It's kind of pretty in the glass jars to have all that color. And they're going to sit on your shell. Making them pretty doesn't hurt anything. Okay. So for now, I've got those filled up. So what we're going to do is we're going to take our knife. We're going to kind of go around the edges in the jar, making sure that we get all the air bubbles out. And you'll see as this settles, then we're going to come back and add juice to some. I do them in pints for a couple reasons. One, we're at that weird stage where we never know how many children are going to be eating dinner with us. They're all teenagers. Well, I can't even say that anymore. I'm about to have two 20-year-olds, so that's kind of scary. But, they're all at different visiting times. You know, the middle one has moved out. And so she goes and comes and sometimes randomly shows up for dinners. And so I never know who's going to be here. So if I do them in pints, then I can break it out and almost measure like 1 pint per person. Like I said, my kids are much older. So now that I've added again, I want to just kind of run around the ones that I've added. Get all the air bubbles out. Make sure everything's covered nicely. And I've still got my inch headspace. And then we're going to take, and I've got a paper towel with just a little bit of vinegar on it. I'm just going to run it around the edges. So that way nothing gets between our lid and our jar. Now, I usually just keep my lids right here, easy access. Remember, with canning, clean hands, clean lids, clean jars. This back down. And again, remember, we're doing hand tight on these, fingertip tight. So my fingertip tight is probably different than your fingertip tight. So you just want to make sure that it's secure. If you need to, because your jars are too hot, because the soup is pretty hot, you can hold the bottom of the jar with a towel. Turn the steam down a little bit. No need to unnecessarily burn myself. You want to almost backspin them on and then go forward. That was almost too tight. You'll know when it's too tight, especially after you've done it for a while. you'll feel when you really crank down. On your jar. Now the bottom of the canner, I use the All-American canner. I love my All-American canner. Before I got the All-American canner, I did use the Presto canner, which it works just fine too. So you don't always have to have the nicest stuff. If you can save up to get there, of course you would want to. But they have these inserts, and so mine of course came with 2 because I can do a double layer. And so what we have is where I'm going to now, I have 2, 4, 6, 8 in the bottom. And so I'm going to take those 8, they're all nice and spaced out. Let me see if I can get you a good shot. Sometimes my camera likes to fall down. But I've got them in there and they're spaced out nicely. The water's hot, jars are hot. And so now I'm gonna take this other insert. Put my towel down. I'm gonna take this other insert and I'm gonna put it on top. And you're gonna want to make sure. Now you want to make sure that it's spaced out, so it will support your next layer of jars. But also, only do this in canners that will let you do this. Don't do this in a canner that is not meant to have a second row. Because again, it's all about pressure, and that's what keeps it to where you don't have any accidents in your canning. All right. Now when I do my top one, I always put my center one in first. Next round of jars. These are still warm. Pink. For now. Start there. All right, I'm going to go ahead and get these jarred up, and then I will come back. So, what I actually do is around the rim of my canner, I take and put a little bit of olive oil in a paper towel, let you sit there for a minute, and I run it around the edge. And this is because when your pressure builds up later, you're going to want to be able to get your canner off, your lid off the canner. So there's a little divot right here in the front of your canner, and there's an arrow on your lid. When they're put together correctly, they will line up. This is how you know everything is where it's supposed to be. And if done correctly, all of these little hooks underneath are lining up to help hold the canner in place. Now, with the All-American canner, it has this screw down function, so you don't want to put them all on tight, but you always want to do opposites to start with. Try to tighten them a little bit as you go. And then you just come back, tighten them all. This is where good hands are necessary. And so what we're going to do is we've got to wait and let the temperature build up inside. I always started around medium, low. You don't want to build your pressure up too fast in here, or you're going to have to watch this thing. It's going to get really hot. It'll go, I mean, because for here, right, I have to go 15 pounds pressure. So if I was to start it really fast and really hot, then this thing's going to get to 15 pounds pressure, and I'm going to sit here and have to baby it and play with my temperature, baby it and play with my temperature to keep it somewhere around that 15 pounds in the canner. But if you let it kind of slowly heat up, right? And so what we're actually doing now is we're in the vent phase. So I've got the top on. We're going to wait until it builds up steam, and the steam's going to come out here, and we're going to do a 10-minute timer once the steam starts to come out. And at the end of the 10 minutes, then I'll put my weight on, and then I'll watch my pressure build up. When it gets to 15 pounds inside my canner and holds there consistently for just a few minutes, then I start my timer. Like I said, I am doing pints, and I am at a higher elevation, so I do 15 pounds pressure for 75 minutes for pints. If I was doing quarts, I would do 90 minutes at the same poundage. So let me get this started. We'll come back once this starts to vent so you can see that process. Okay, so it's starting to steam out now. You can't really see it too well on the camera. But what we're going to do is we're going to set our timer. My clock is never right, just FYI. Every time I set it, the power goes out. So I just gave up. So we're going to set 10 minutes on our timer. We're going to let this vent for 10 minutes, and then we'll put our weight on. Okay, so now we've gone through our 10-minute vent. So we're going to get our weight, and our weight has, let's see if we can pick it up. There's a 15 right here. So because I have to do 15 pounds pressure, I'm going to put that here, put the 15 down, and now we're going to watch our timer, and we're going to slowly heat up to 15 pounds pressure. There we go. Now it's jiggling. You're going to kind of listen to it. Make sure you stay close while you're canning in case your weight gets stuck. Weird things can happen, right? You don't want too much pressure to build. They do have your caution line. Of course, you're going to want to stay at that 15 pounds. You see how it stopped? Because again, it's only going to kind of move to release pressure as needed. But you're still going to want to stay close to it. So in case it gets stuck, jammed, weird things happen while you're canning. So it's not about working in fear. It's about just being vigilant of what we're doing and what we're working on. So usually I have other tasks that I'm doing and moving around the kitchen to kind of keep an eye on things, but not being obsessive about the canner, because you can kind of work yourself up and freak yourself out. So just kind of keep an eye on things. We're going to go ahead and set our timer for 75 minutes. And we'll be back. Hey guys, we're back. It's been now the full 75 minutes. My timer actually just went off. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to just come over here and turn my heat off. Do not take your weight off. Do not. If you pull your weight right now, yeah, all your pressure is going to come out. But a lot of things could happen if you do that. Your jars could break. You could siphon a lot of your material back out. You could mess with your seal. So all you're going to do, especially if you have an electric stove, you're just going to turn it off. And then you're going to let it just sit and naturally kind of vent by itself, right? This is not your Instapot. Do not treat it like your Instapot. This is a lot of pressure. If you were to pull that weight off of it, so much steam would come out. I mean, it could be bad. So you're just going to let this naturally vent itself. Usually it takes anywhere from 30 minutes to an hour, just depending. And then we'll come back at the end of that, and we'll see, you know, how things are looking. We'll take our canner apart. We'll pull the stuff out. Now, you'll probably notice when I pull my jars out, that my jars are going to be cloudy, and it's because I have a very high mineral content in my water here, and I do not put vinegar in my water to have clean jars. That will rust your rims, that can cause issues with your lids. So I just take, when they come out, and I'll wash them off with a vinegar bath if needed, so that way I can control the amount of vinegar that gets onto my product. So we're just going to let this vent, like I said, and we'll be back. It has vented, and so now I'm going to remove my weight, which you might actually see just a little puff of steam come out, because I don't want to leave it overnight sitting here. Now you can, right, if you want to, you can leave it sitting overnight. Just depends on how tired you are when you're done. But I don't like to leave mine sitting overnight, because with animals and everything else, things can happen. So I'm going to go ahead and pull my weight. Again, this is going to be very hot. So just put your towel on top of it. See, nothing really comes out pressure-wise. So we know that we vented things down. And like I said, the canner is going to be pretty hot. And you're going to undo these the same way you put them together on opposite sides. So you're going to just take them off little bit by little bit. And this is where that olive oil that we did earlier is really going to come in handy, because when I take this and I twist it, and again, we're using towels because like I said, it's going to be hot. As you see, it moved. If I hadn't have oiled that, it wouldn't have come apart as easy. So we've got our jar grabbers. We're just going to start pulling them out. I've got a towel over here. I don't like to just set them on my countertop. Again, we've got to get our second level where my massive tongs come in handy. You can pull this out, set it in your sink, and continue to your second level. All right, there we go. So they're all out. I'm going to let them sit here and cool overnight. Probably we'll come back later tomorrow afternoon or the next morning and take the bands off. We're going to listen for them all to ping. If any of them don't seal, they'll go to the fridge and somebody will take them for lunch sooner rather than later. This is actually really handy. You can swap out any meat in there. Of course, I did chicken because I had chicken thighs available. But I know a lot of people are going to have a lot of leftover turkey here pretty soon. So you can make your own turkey bone broth by boiling down the leftover carcass and then pulling the meat off and doing this same recipe and just swapping out the meat. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you learned something, and we'll see you next time.